Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your support in being here and registering and joining. My name is Ray Khan. I work for the Blue Card, which is the only nonprofit organization whose sole mission is to help Holocaust survivors in need. Unfortunately, there are too many Holocaust survivors who live under the poverty line here in the US. And so it's our mission and our sole mission to help those Holocaust survivors. Along with me from the Blue Card organization is our Blue Card board member, President Ellie Rubenstein, who will be speaking right after me, Executive Director Masha Pearl, and our Associate Executive Director, Milana Hazen. So before we start with the speeches and all the introductions, I'm just going to share a clip with everyone to get us started.
Jose Urbach. I am 77 years old. I was born in Poland.
My name is Magda Rosenberg. I'm 88 years old. All of my family perished in the Holocaust, and I'm the only survivor.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I'm 77 years old, and I was born in Chernovitz, which at that time belonged to Romania. Today it's in Ukraine.
When the survivors came to the United States, they had so much trauma in their lives that it was difficult for them to formally fight them with long-range, long-term care benefits later on as they became seniors.
I was with my parents in a labor camp. The German government admits that they did medical experiments in Ukraine and that I was one of them. I'm still in chronic pain every single day.
Whenever I start talking about it, I start to cry, and I can't do it.
Whereas many seniors have family to rely on to support them and to help them in life as they become older, all the survivors' families were murdered during the war. And whereas many seniors have assets and inheritance that they procured over their lifetime, the survivors of the Holocaust had all of that stolen from them.
I am not making too much money, but I have to work in order to supplement my income.
My father was killed in Buchenwald. We were in the concentration camp, and they took most of the men the night before. The next day, we were liberated, my mother and I. From 9/11 on, everything changed. I lost my job. The money, little by little, started to vanish. I mean, we didn't have any other source of income. There are lots of limitations. You know, we have to be careful with what the food we buy, everything.
I got involved with the wrong people. I lost everything, and I was in a shelter. I was there for 6 months, and I finally got the housing where I live today. As long as I can, I will remain independent. But I do know, since I'm by myself, there is nobody else, I have no family, I do know that at some point I may need help.
There are many survivors that are still alive today, and so we want to get to a situation where we're able to help them now and not read about them later. Now is the time. We can't wait till next year.
We're dying out. In another 10 years, there won't be a Holocaust survivor left.
That is a CNN video that we had done prior to, especially prior to COVID. So we did have that short video before we were not able to get into the Holocaust survivors' homes for the interview. It is very emotional. I'm sorry, just trying to get my brain everything. I'm going to pass it now to Ellie Rubenstein, our president. Ellie.
Thank you, Rihan. It is my pleasure to introduce Michael Reingold, who helped to organize this event. And I want to give us kind of brief introduction. Michael is originally from the Square Hill neighborhood of Pittsburgh, and he has lived in New York since 1993. Michael loves to share his passion for music. Michael is also the associate director of the Turnover School of Music at the Kaplan JCC on the Palisades in Tenafly, New Jersey. And through his passion, through his talents, he has presented more than 500 intimate performances as the founder of the New York City House Concerts. And for the past 20 years, he has played French horn in the New Amsterdam Symphony Orchestra. Through his work at the JCC in New Jersey, Michael became friends with Barbara and Michael Listener and their children, Elise and Sam. The listeners introduced Michael to the Blue Card, and Michael became impressed with the work of the Blue Card and with the plight of the Holocaust survivors who need the help now. Without further ado, Michael, please say a few words.
Thank you, Ellie, for that very kind introduction. As a child growing up in Pittsburgh and in college, I had lots of opportunities, or several opportunities, to hear a Holocaust survivor. But if you're anything like me, it's been years since I've heard a survivor tell their story in person. And as time passes, we all know the opportunities are more and more rare. So I'm very grateful that we've been able to make tonight's event happen and that you are all here with us. I'm touched to see the names of many friends and family members, and also happy to see many unfamiliar names. Thank you to everyone who helped to spread the word about this event, which was scheduled less than a week ago. I want to thank the staff of the Blue Card, Ellie, Masha, Milana, and Rehan, as well as the Blue Card's board and donors for all that they do to help survivors in their time of need. As I've come to appreciate, there is still a need, and the need is great. I'm grateful to the Blue Card staff for collaborating in creating tonight's event, giving us the special opportunity to hear Goldie's story, and what a story it is, and to learn about the Blue Card. Finally, I want to thank my friends, Barbara and Michael Listener, who have been active lay leaders at the Blue Card for many years, for introducing me to this important organization. And now it's my great honor to introduce Goldie Jacoby. I'll say a few words, but Goldie will tell her story. Goldie's originally from Freistadt, Poland, and now lives in Palm Springs, California. I won't tell you much more about Goldie and her life journey, as I'll leave that to her. But I will say a few things. Goldie lives in a home she used to share with her late husband, George. Now alone, Goldie knows that she can count on the Blue Card for financial and emotional support. The Blue Card has been assisting Goldie since 2002 through a number of programs, including the Telephone Emergency Response System Unit, a monthly stipend, and Jewish holiday and Mazel Tov birthday grants. The Blue Card also assists Goldie with her property tax payments to ensure that she stays in her home for as long as possible. The Blue Card staff is like family to Goldie, as I'm sure she's going to tell you. And they, the Blue Card staff, cherish her very much and admire her immensely for her strength and courage to speak to both children and adults about her story. A natural and charming speaker, Goldie speaks often at schools, universities, synagogues, and other events about her experience and the importance of remembering the Holocaust and the devastating impact that hate can have on humanity. Being the proactive and positive person that she is, Goldie has decided to take matters into her own hands and help out in any way that she can. Goldie has been making masks, many of which she sent to the Blue Card to be distributed to survivors nationally. Please join me in welcoming Goldie Jacoby.
Thank you. You said too many nice things about him, but thank you. Okay, I'll start by telling you that I was born in Poland in 1937, and I lived with my parents and my brother in well, it's a big town, Katowice. That's where the previous Pope was born. Every year, I guess my parents were visiting our grandparents. This time they visited my paternal grandparents, which lived in the small town of Frischtak. My first recollection, I was between 5 and 6 years old. There's always somebody saying different, you know. When we arrived in Frischtak, my uncles were there. It was a reunion, sort of. There were a lot of, about 8 children, I think, that my aunts and uncles were, and they lived, some of them lived in this town, and some of them just came for that reunion. We children stayed with one of my aunts and uncles, my brother and I. And my first recollection was we were playing outside on Sunday, playing ball. 2 cousins, same age as my brother and I. My brother was 4 years older than I, and the 2 cousins were the same, different age. We're playing balls, and a church door opened, and children came out running and calling us dirty Jews, and throwing stones. And my little cousin got a stone in his head and started bleeding. And my aunts kept running out, and they called us dirty Jews, kept running out and taking us inside. My cousin was crying and saying, you can't play outside on a Sunday ever again because you are Jewish. And so I knew that something was wrong with us. I knew I wasn't dirty, you know, but that was the first incident. And life after that became a total horror that is beyond humanity. At night, we were sleeping in this my aunts and uncle's house, and I was sleeping with my brother in my mother's bed, with my mother in bed and my father, and we hear knocking on the door. It was a banging and banging and banging on the door, and what do you know? They came in, they broke in the door, and they started screaming to my mother. By that time, my father ran away. He ran to the back door, and we children were screaming and crying. And the Gestapo, there were 3 German soldiers and a Polish police. I don't know exactly the amount of people that were there, but they started screaming at my mother, "Where are the men? Where are the men? Where are the men?" And my mother kept saying, "I don't know. I don't know." And they kept holding the bayonet against her throat, and we are screaming, and they are saying, "Shut up, those children, or we'll kill you. Where are the men?" Well, when my mother, I don't know how she had that power, waited long enough to make sure that my father escaped to the back door, she pointed to the back door, and guess what? They ran there and they raped my 13-year-old cousin. But I didn't know about rape. All I know is that she was screaming and crying, and anyway, she was never the same. They really did a number on her. They told us that she was beaten. Never told us about rape, of course. Children, we didn't know anything. But what I didn't tell you is that the next day, I saw the people outside, just everybody sad, crying. I got so scared and I didn't see my mother. I was looking for her all over, and I started crying, "Where's my mommy, mommy?" And they pointed a finger down the street. It was a 1-horse town, small little town. And down the street, so I ran down the street, and there is my mother. My mother with a young teacher, a Hebrew teacher, in a Jewish young woman that just gave birth to her baby. My mother and her are crying. I am standing there crying. I didn't know what they were doing. They took a little baby, the firstborn of that teacher, and put it in a suitcase and bedded it out and closed the suitcase. The baby didn't cry anymore, and they killed the baby. I started screaming. I thought they were going to put me in the suitcase too. And, you know, I didn't know that I wasn't that tiny, you know, newborn. And no explanation, but because how could I even understand what they did? We went back home. I knew nothing except that the the thing came out saying a big notice, all the Jews in that town have to go to this Appellplatz. Sort of, it's like it's a let's say it's a like a knoll, you know, like people, they used to sell like a swap meet, more or less, you know, and it was full of grassy knoll. And they said that the whole town is a ghetto now. They are all surrounded it. There's nowhere to escape. All the Jews have to go to this place. Like sheep, we all went. My father, he and my uncle were hiding somewhere, so it was my mother and my two, and my brother and of course my aunts, and everybody went. My grandfather, my grandmother, everybody went to that place, and there was another 2 or 3 babies born on, you know, in the town, small little babies. And the first thing they did is take the babies out of the mother's arms and threw them against the wall, a big brick wall. I was, like I say, I can't even talk about it because I still have the nightmares at night, you know, to hear them screaming. The screaming of the mothers. They took infants and threw them and shattered and blood all over, and the mother screaming. I can hear him forever, you know, in my head. And as we are sitting on that grass, my mother's holding my mouth and my brother's mouth not to draw attention to us. And they ordered these mothers who can hardly say, I'm surprised they didn't shoot him. To go and sit down, and they did, crying and screaming. The next thing, they took my grandmother and grandfather down it was a little knoll, like I said, a little incline. My grandfather, my grandmother, and took him down and hit him with a rifle butt over the head, and they died instantly right in front of him. I don't know to this day, because I, for some reason, didn't ask about that. I don't know if they were ever buried. I never remember any funerals. So I guess not. I don't know what happened to them. And I never asked. They ordered us all to go back and not to try to leave because we can't. So here my father comes back and my uncle and asks, and that I will never, it's funny that, you know, I was maybe five or almost 6. I remember my mother's tears, and I remember the words my father said. I have an opportunity, he said it all in Yiddish, I have an opportunity to go with these freedom fighters to fight the Germans. But of course, they won't take women and children. So I am going with my uncle and do this. And my mother said, if you can save your life, go ahead. And they did. And they left us there to die, because the next thing was that they had no use for little children like us and these mothers. But they decided that maybe they can save our lives. So in the living room of my aunts, they took out the floorboards. There were logs, the floorboards from the floor, and like a grave. It was not just enough for maybe us to just jump in, you know. And there was a big, you know, I don't know what you call credenza, a china closet, those big china closet in Europe, you know, very heavy. And that was under, you know, that was under that. They pushed it away. And one of the uncles was hiding in the attic. And if he would not survive, if they would catch him, we would die, suffocate, all of us in there, because you can't survive. There was no air, and there was no, they covered it all up with the logs. Well, sure, the time came, we all we all knew that we had to run in. We jumped in, some other people came on top of us. And he puts the logs back on, and I don't know how he shoved that thing. I don't remember. I think my uncle was still there, and my father, and they pushed that big china closet on that thing, and he ran into the attic. For some, there was no air in there. I was the first one that couldn't breathe as a child. I always had problems with my throat, with my earaches, and so on and so forth. And I remember the last words of my mother: "The child is dead," and then I didn't remember anything. So I don't know how much time, but I know that my mother was saying they were shooting, and oh, they could hear. It was just a horrible, horrible thing happening above. Screaming and shooting and screaming and shooting. They wiped out everybody that was there. And my mother, as I couldn't breathe, tried to pick me up against the logs. Maybe I can catch some breath. And for some reason, I was still breathing. And my uncle opens up, just like a miracle. I hardly believe in them, but it was. He opens up, he takes out the logs, and he says, "Run, run, everybody's dead, run." So now here we are, 2 women with 4 children, and they're running. Where they're running, they have no idea where to run. By this time, the German left the town. Where do they run? They go from village to village, to farmer, begging for food. She ran away with 1 blanket. My mother had 1 blanket, and that's it. And we were just dressed in normal clothing. Winter was coming, and we ran. We hid in the forest. We came out of the forest. We kept going from house to house, from evening, and not in the daytime, the night, and begging them please to give us some food. Nobody would. Not one person. My mother was pointing to our mouth how hungry we are. Nothing was given to us. We were trying to steal some roots maybe from the ground that we could eat, but winter was coming, so there wasn't really anything to have. And sure enough, as soon as we started picking something from the thing, Gestapo stops, or German soldier, I call them all Gestapos, stopped and said, "Shoot, I will shoot, stop or I'll shoot." My mother grabs me by the hand and my brother and starts running. She says, "Shoot me in the back. I don't want to see my children die." And all I heard as a child was die, 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 but I didn't really know what that meant, but all I know is that the fear was unbelievable, always running, always hiding, always begging for food. And they would not help. They wouldn't throw out a slice of bread. It went on and on and on and on like that, and it was awful. But after he stopped us, when he stopped us, he said to my aunt, "Have a stop or I'll shoot. But I won't shoot if she comes down." So my mother came down. My aunt told her, Helen is not shooting, come on down." So we went down, and all 4 children, for some reason, bent down and started kissing the boots of the soldier and begging him not to kill us, not to kill us. And so he looked at my mother and my aunt and told my mother to give them their wedding bands. They generously gave it to him. And the next thing he asked for is the blanket. My mother said, "If you take the blanket, you might as well kill us, because children won't survive in this horrible weather." He says, okay, go ahead, run. The forest was maybe 100 feet, away. And again, my mother takes us by the hand and starts screaming, "He'll shoot us in the back. He'll shoot us in the back. He will die, we'll die, we'll die." But he didn't shoot. I don't know why or what was that, but when we came into the forest, my mother and my aunt said, "I wish he would have shot us, because what are we going to do?" And that's all that's all we heard. And the next thing we heard, I have to tell you every bit of it because everything that happened is a trauma. Then we children hear the two mothers plotting to kill us. They're going to throw us into a well, and that way they don't have to suffer. So they knew about concentration camp because we didn't, we're children. So that the children are suffering too much. I think we should just drown them. Of course, we started begging and pleading and crying. So I'm here to tell you what happened. They were so drained already from God. There was no way out. They decided that maybe they will just give up and go to concentration camp. So they went to the last place, to the last village, and asked again the farmer to give him some food. And the farmer says, "Get away from my door. We don't help Jews. Get away." My mother said, "Okay, you might as well call the German, the Gestapo, because we are not moving. Either give us some food, or we're staying here until the morning, and then maybe we'll go." But by this time, remember, we were, I don't know how, a month maybe, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we were walking around like this. We had no more shoes left in the forest, walking. There were so many sticks and stones. We wrapped our feet with whatever extra clothes we had, whether it was the panties or whatever. We wrapped our feet because the shoes were already falling apart. And lice, I cannot tell you how filthy we were, with no washing, no water, just and the lice were eating us up, and blisters started forming on our feet and on our heads. And when we went to this last place, they and asked for food, they said, "Absolutely not. Get away from my door. I don't help Jews." And when my mother says, "No, we're going to stay here," the farmer lady said, "In the next village, I saw two men at a friend's of ours. There were two men," and she described them. And my mother and my aunt said, "Oh, that sounds like our husbands." So they didn't get to yet do anything. They were stuck with this wonderful, by the way, Christian who helped no matter how much he was beaten by the Germans, on the suspicion that he's helping Jews. That didn't stop him. He would go to the forest and bring a bread. They were very poor. They had nothing themselves, but a true Christian. And they left me because I couldn't walk anymore. I had so many blisters, and I couldn't walk. So they all left to go find my father and my uncle. Now, remember, I'm a 5-6-year-old child, and the woman poured gasoline or petrol or whatever they call it there on my head to get rid of the lice, I guess, because she knew they were crawling all over me. And you would think she would take me in the house. Oh, no. She threw me in the barn, in a dark barn, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this must be dead, because when I was whimpering, she slapped me, and I thought, well, this must be dead. This is dead. My mother said dead, and I had no idea if my mother will ever come back. Nobody told me anything, I was just sitting there and terrified, just scared to death. Somehow in the morning, very, very still a little dark, they came back. They came back with my father and my uncle. And joy, I was so thrilled. Now everything will be okay. Well, they still don't know where to go, but they decided to go to the forest, because at the forest, that's what he said, there are a lot of Jews hiding. However, they also raid the forest, the Germans sometimes. Anyway, we were in the forest already, as Jews always do, maybe 100 people there or so. they make a little community, and we already lit a little fire, and we had a lookout to watch if they're invading the forest. And sure enough, as soon as we got a little comfortable and shaking because it was freezing and I had almost hardly nothing to wear, the man comes running, white like a ghost. Run, 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 run. The Germans are coming. Well, we ran. Everybody runs in different directions. My father picks me up and runs in one direction. My mother and the rest of them will go in another direction. And there was one man with a little girl too, also, and running with us to say, my father was wearing a very heavy jacket, but he had no clue to wrap me around him. Maybe fear, maybe, I don't know, maybe just not thinking. But I was whimpering and crying because it was so cold and I was so cold. And my father was so scared the Germans are going to hear me whimpering. He threw me in the snow. He threw me in the snow and he ran. And I started screaming louder. So now he got really scared. So he came back for me and he picked me up. And I always say, I don't know if he did it because he was scared that the Germans are going to hear me, or my mother will kill him. You know, I don't know, but he picked me up, and we ran into this barn, burned out barn, and slowly the others came also. They were looking for us, and they came into the barn and joined us. The aunt and uncle that we stayed with originally, that they did not go with us under, and they brought. They didn't bring their daughter, the ones that was attacked. They left her at some Gentile family, I guess, you know. We found out later. And here we are now, 10 people, 4, 4, 8, and my. This is the family. Now, where do we go? Nowhere to go, till my father said, no, let's go back to Genik. That's the man, that wonderful Christian that he was at. Let's go and see if he'll hide us. Imagine 10 people showing up at the door at the man who is really poor, you know, and scared to death because the neighbors are there. And we started begging him to save our lives, crying, begging. He can't, of course he can't. He has a wife, a mother, and a 12-year-old son, and 1 cow and 2 pigs. That's it, you know, and he has no money, he can't feed all these people. Begging him, we promised him we'll give him everything if we survive and so on. But he didn't do it. He didn't agree to it because of this, you know, he just did it out of he just couldn't take it anymore, of the begging and pleading. And he made us room. He said, okay, okay, okay. And we went into the barn. In the barn, he took out the pigs and put them on the other side. And you know how much pigs, you know how little the space is, but there was a little covering on it. And 10 people sat in a place, no, not 10, like 5 by 5 by 5. That's what the pigs were, right? 5 feet, 5 feet, 10 people. No one can lie down. There's no lying down. You have to just sit there, you know. We sat, we couldn't sleep. We have to put one head on top of the other. So we were there for almost 3 years. Imagine, almost 3 years sitting and vegetating. No pencil, no paper, no nothing. Children just blank, and you can't open your mouth because, I mean, everything is done with whispers. My uncle, the one we stayed with, still had the audacity to have his little sitter with him, and he said a prayer every single morning. He was praying and humming. So you know, this is a loving family who didn't stop yelling at him for to be quiet because we were so scared the neighbors are going to hear. The lice were, now remember, this is already on and on and on, and nothing, we were never bathed. We were filthy, dirty. Lice are eating us up. There was no way to do anything. And you know, we used the urine to try to get the blisters, you know, off our feet. We thought, well, you know, there was no alcohol or anything like that. So we tried urine, but no, it festered even more. And the lice are just unbelievable everywhere. Our entertainment was to delouse, and that was taking off our clothing and finding, and if you're lucky, and it's whatever you have left that has a lot of cracks in it and the lice are hiding. Wow, that was a wonderful experience. We could find them and we could kill them, and it would take another hour or so. And if you were lucky enough and you were a good child and didn't talk loud, and you know, you were good all day. My aunt, who was a little bigger, still had a bra with a lot of seams, you know. I'm a dressmaker, I should know about seams. And she, with a lot of seams and little cracks everywhere. And if you were good, I got the bra most of the time. I was such a good child. So she would give me the bra for an extra, so I can another half hour pick the lice out of her bra. That was the entertainment that we were looking forward to every single day, because nothing else that we did. They brought in sometimes a bread. And imagine splitting 10 people. Everybody had just about a little tiny bit to smell, and we children smelled it mostly, so afraid to eat it because it was such a good thing. And then they brought in every so often a pot of beans, and the mothers divided the beans, and a fight broke out between the mothers all the time, because each one accused the other of giving the children their children more beans than the other. This is what it came to. This is what you know, and we had to relieve ourselves in front of each other in a pile of whatever the cow and whatever some of the pigs, when she emptied out and tried to clean it. There's a, you know, in a barn there is like a little door, a little trap door, like a doggy door, where they shove everything out. Well, we had to relieve ourselves. We had to mix it up with the feces of the cow and the pigs, and so that the neighbors don't see that there are any people in there. And we sat like this and slept on each other's for almost 3 years. Nobody could lie down. Nobody could really get up and walk. I even had typhoid there and somehow survived. The boredom is beyond absolute belief. I don't know how our brains even survived all this, but we did. Okay, and my mother made me an apron for my birthday. That's Ellie was talking about it. She had the slip was still a little, you know, was still some material left that was tearing and tearing. She asked the lady of the house, of the farm, she asked her to bring her a thread and a needle, so she made me this, which I thought was a beautiful apron. That's the only thing I have from there. I thought that I don't know what a mirror is. We never saw a mirror, but when I looked, I thought I was just beautiful. And that was, I think, either my 6th birthday or my 7th. I'm not quite clear on that, because nobody sang me happy birthday or anything, you know, but that was my birthday present. She embroidered it with she brought us some lilac thread, and it's hanging at the Tolerance Center here in Palm Springs. I also have a picture of it in the book that I wrote, you know, in my booklet. So that's the only thing that I have left from that time. And she gave it to me on her dying day. And what else can I tell you about that? That life was like, I didn't know any other life. You know, when you're 5, 6 years old, what do you know? Nothing. I only know that when we were in that town, I was collecting garbage because they ordered for the children to collect the garbage there. So I was doing the same thing, followed my brother, whatever he did. And one, so it's another little story that I have to tell you. My the people that were there decided that they were going to have the Germans come and drink in their house, because that will they will never know that they are hiding Jews, you know. So I think they made their own whiskey or whatever, and they invited the Germans to come to drink. So that way, you know, he won't be suspected of having anybody. So they took, one day they came to drink, and one of them got drunk, so drunk that he came into the barn, and we were, this is it, we're gonna die, we're just gonna die. But Niegela, she ran out, that's his wife, she ran out and caught him just in time to bring him back into the house. Now again, we're not safe even sitting there. So they took the pigs, where the pigs are, you know, and they also took the logs out and made a hiding place for us to go under the pigs and to sit there when the Germans are drinking. And so they gave us a signal that the Germans are coming, which was almost every night for a long time. And we had to go under the pigs. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because the pigs urinate, and it goes right through to us, and they urinate, and it's so strong that urine, and it goes right on our blisters and our feet. So the pain is just, it's just unbelievable. And we sat like this, like I said, for almost 3 years, till one day he came in and he said, the war is over. Of course, the adults were joyful and happy and we were happy because they were happy. We didn't even know what that meant, you know. I mean, no education, you know. By the time it was over, I was 7 or 8 years old, and I didn't know it. I didn't know anything. They decided now we have to leave, but we couldn't leave because he told us that the Polish people are still killing Jews, even though they didn't have to anymore. The Germans have, you know, are gone. And so we had to wait again till it's dark until we do. And now we can't walk because we walk like ducks, because we were sitting for such a long time that our muscles were totally, we just couldn't get up. Eventually we walked out and we could. We went to the little town where my mother was born, which was adjacent to these villages. And the Russians were there to show you how unlucky some people are. Instead of being liberated by America, by the American soldiers, it was the Russians. They didn't have anything. They didn't give us anything. In fact, in order for us to get on a train, we have to bribe them. We have nothing to bribe them with. And again, we're hungry. Nothing changed. Starving. We looked like, I cannot even tell you, probably. I never saw mirrors, I don't know. And now, so they hear that in the side of Germany or Austria, there are Americans. The American zone is there, and we have to go there, but we can't get on the trains because the Russians won't let us on. There was Russians and some survivors, and it was the trains were packed, and I don't know how my father got us on, but we were sitting on the floor on the train, you know, and going on the train to Czechoslovakia, which all 4 of us got the measles. couldn't speak a word of Czech, or anything, and not even hot water, but somehow we survived it with high fever. And from Czechoslovakia, we went to Budapest, Hungary. From Hungary, we got somehow over to Austria. Austria, they're the American zone. Well, that was a different story. And now they really took a hold of us, They gave us medical care. They gave us clothing from Americans. I mean, it was loads and loads that came from here, And 3 years we were in Austria, stuck, nowhere to go. Nobody wanted us. Not America, not everywhere. Nobody. The only place that we were finally, once we got a little bit healthier, there was a teacher there, and they started teaching us a little bit. So we learned the ABCs. We learned a little bit Hebrew, not English, of course, Hebrew, and a little bit arts and crafts. That's a husband and wife. And oh my gosh, my mother, she wanted to put all the education that we missed in us, especially me, because I was always willing to do everything. There's not enough time for me, So she piano lessons. I got a headache. I couldn't do that. Swimming lessons, skiing lessons. She took me to the opera, I mean, she tried to do whatever she can. So I had mothering for about 2 years of my life, because the first year being there, we were trying to recuperate. The second year, my mother was mothering, then my father the reason I say that is because my father got a heart attack, and she stayed with him in the hospital, and my aunt was taking care of us. So again, my mother wasn't there. We had a lot of food. I mean, that's the thing. We at least, we weren't scared anymore, and we had food. Now I'm scared, but I didn't. We were finally not scared because they told us that we are safe. And most of all, nowhere to go. Nobody wants us. So we were going to go to Israel, because Israel, now the fighting there was not going on. But we couldn't go to Israel because the English occupied, So again, we can't get anywhere. We tried, that ship called the Exodus. Well, we tried to get on it. We couldn't. So we're stuck in Austria. Like I said, Austria, at least, we recuperated, and we 3 years, a little bit of learning, a little bit of something, and finally somebody, the Americans were very good. They had a Red Cross here in America who had all the names of survivors, and a cousin of my father's saw the name and knew that my father was his cousin. So they sponsored us to come to the United States. And even then, we have wait another year till we get here. Speaking of vetting, I never heard that word before till this vetting started here. They gave us every shot that humans or dogs ever had. I mean, I don't know what diseases they shot into us, or I mean, against diseases, but so many that I am so phobic. I have so many phobias you wouldn't believe, and we couldn't. The arms were so swollen, nobody could touch each other. It was so bad, and finally we got on the thing. We came to America. Well, you would think everything would be just absolutely wonderful. Well, those cousins who sponsored us, not that he didn't want to have anything to do with us, dropped us off, and that was the end. We were in this I don't know what they call UNRWA or whatever. When we came to the United States, we came to Boston. From Boston, there was a train that came to New York, and somewhere in New York, I never saw the Statue of Liberty, but somewhere in New York we were, and there were some other people there too, but remember, not a word of English. Don't know what to do, who we are, where we are, what we are. Never, we don't have any money. We don't have anything. We just stuck. And so I guess those people that we were the place we were staying at finally got us into an apartment, New York buildings in the Bronx, somewhere on a big, huge building where not the superintendent, under the superintendent, where all the garbage cans are and all the rats are and all the soggy mattresses are. That's where they put us. And the rats were actually coming to climb up on the mattresses that we were lying on. It was horrible. But also, I cannot blame America for that, because it was post-war, and the American soldiers came home. They had needed also where to live and what to do. So we were just the greenhorns that really disturbed everybody, and it was awful. We had no help at all. No help. We didn't know anything about food stamps or this or that. Nothing. And we weren't hungry. They were giving us food everywhere. And by the way, the first orange I ever saw was the first one won in Europe, and the rest in America. Oh God, that was the best thing I ever saw in my life. And so now now we're in America, and my mother is looking for a job. They told us, that we have to get jobs. Meantime, we still don't have where to live. Finally, some organization, Jewish organization, I don't know which one, found in the Bronx a 1-bedroom apartment for us. And I guess they maybe paid it, or my father, I think, maybe brought $300 with him from he was trying to black market in the DP camps. They were trying to sell cigarettes or whatever. I remember. So he had like $200 or $300 probably. And anyway, then they bought a candy store across the street from where we lived, and a little tiny candy store. And again, my father got a heart attack. Now my mother has to take care of the store. Now the children to school. Oh my gosh, they put me in a first grade, and I was almost 12. The cruelty of such little kids is unbelievable. They made fun of me. They laughed, and I cried and I cried and I cried. I was so miserable. I can't tell you. They laughed at me because I had braids. They laughed at me because I had high top shoes. I was so unhappy till somebody told them about the Beit Yaakov in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And they accepted us without any money because we didn't have any. They accepted me in school that was Beit Yaakov in William, and there I flourished. There there was a few children like me, they're a little older, but there it was half Hebrew and half English. And I studied, and I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. It's when I first, I think, became a human being. But to go by subway from the Bronx to Brooklyn, to Williamsburg, Brooklyn, it's a task. So I was gone early in the morning till late at night till I came home, and I slept. My mother and father had the bedroom. I slept on the couch with my brother. He was a teenager. He's 4 years older than me. He was like 15, 16 years old. And it's not healthy at all. It wasn't appropriate, it wasn't healthy. And I couldn't stand, never had any privacy. I never had, my best deal that I had was on Friday night to take some comic books from the candy store. And my mother said, to be sure you don't wet them when you take a bath because we have to resell them. and I was learning English by trying to read Archie comic books, and all that, and it. I think I would have. Okay, let me first just tell you that not that I'm brilliant, but I studied so much because I loved it so much. My brain would explode, I graduated high school at 16, which is again a miracle, right? I was going to be a Hebrew teacher, but it just didn't work out. You know, you have to really pass childhood, babyhood, toddlerhood, all these uh, things in order to be a normal human being. It wasn't. Well, one day I had to go to bring newspapers for the candy stores, so my mother sent me to Southern Boulevard, which I went, and there were some boys who knew my brother, and there was my husband George came up to them to talk to them, and I couldn't get I don't know how. I was a shy little girl, how I had the nerve to poke the guy next to me and say, introduce me, and he did. And George said, hi, and he walked, and I said, oh, you are really rude. And I would never imagine ever saying something like that, but he was really gorgeous. So didn't know he was 8 years older than me, and to him, so first thing he said to me, well, I'm not rude, but why does a young girl like this stay here with all these bums? He called them, his friends. I said, no, I'm just talking to them. And he said, no, you should be home. You're too young. So I said, okay, if you want me home, take my papers and walk me home. Imagine, I can't imagine to this day that I said that. And he did. And he walked, and he had an accent, and he asked me how old I was, first thing. And I said, 18. I was 15, but it just fell right out of my mouth. 18. And he said, I don't date 18-year-olds. You're way too young for me. And so anyway, he took my phone number. He did call me, and we got together. To make a long story short, he never knew how old I was until 3 months later when we planned to get married. Didn't know anything about him except that he was gorgeous. Hormones work, when you're that young and stupid. So my mother said, he's too old for you. You can't. No. Yeah. And I said, no. And I threatened that I will run away with him. And there we go. And he asked, why are you signing a paper? Why are you saying? And then I had to tell him that I was only 16. And he almost passed out. But it was too late. In love, and so we got married. Now he was in 7 concentration camps. He came from a very wealthy family in Romania, and had everything. He didn't lack anything in life, and he was working in France. Oh, I forgot to tell you something. When they picked him up after liberation, he watched his father be beaten to death. He watched his mother and his little brother go to the gas chamber, and he was left alone. And he knew nothing about the world. He was a sheltered, rich kid, and he didn't know anything. And so they picked up these children, Elie Wiesel, George, and all these kids, and took them to France. And in France, they tried to teach him a trade. Well, what did my husband pick? He picked, he was 15, 16 years old. He picked to be a handbag framer, to do handbags. And he was doing that, in New York when I met him. So he didn't have any profession, any trade. And again, he had nobody to tell him what to do and how to get an education as I didn't, you know. That he didn't have any parents. My parents didn't know about education because all they do is struggle to make a living, you know, to survive. And so we fell through we fell through the cracks, to tell you. We got married, and to tell you another thing that I don't know if I can tell it to you. I don't often tell this part of my life. I wanted a baby because thinking that a baby I can play with, I needed something to love me and love it. And he didn't want any children, but finally I got pregnant. And no sooner was I in the 3rd month pregnant when I went shopping, and 2 men attacked me on the way, trying to open the door. Hand went over my mouth. 2 men attacked me, raped me. And I didn't know till the baby was born if she would be normal, or we didn't have any of those things. It was something that, well, my husband went to insanity. I would not leave the house. And then the doctor said that we must move away from New York. That's the only reason why we came to California, because my mother knew somebody from the peak displaced persons camp, you know, that we in Austria made some friends, and they were in California. So how do they say, barefoot and pregnant, we came to California. Again, George has no job. George has just a little bit of savings. We put the furniture in storage, and we come here, and I'm crying every night for my mother, because that's the only person that I could talk to. Nobody around. And we had such a horrible time here. I just cannot even tell you. We came to Los Angeles. East Los Angeles is where we lived. That's where some Jewish people were living, you know, there. And I was pregnant. We stayed with them for a while, you know, but how long can you stay with people? So there was a shack across the street, a real shack, all growth all over it. And we said, let's see if we can maybe fix it up, and maybe the landlord will let us have it. He let us have it for a month free rent, and we fixed up this shack, 1-bedroom shack. George and I fixed it up. But we had no furniture. We went to the Army and Navy place. We got a cot, you know, the Army cots, where only one person can barely sleep on. And I fell off the one time from the cot, and George took a belt and tied us together so we can sleep on that cot without me falling off, you know. And I waited and hoped that my mother will sell the candy store and come. And, you know, eventually they came when the baby, for the birth of the baby, and they stayed here in California. And nothing but trouble. Finally, my father brought, okay, let me tell you, my baby was born normal. And normal, she's nervous and all that, and I don't know if that's due to that, you know, or due to having Holocaust survivor parents. It's not such a big deal to have, you know, especially people who really had no idea how to parent. But I did the best I could. That's all I can say, you know. And I have 2 loving daughters, that's true, but not without problems. My younger one had anorexia when she was 11, and she almost died, you know. And you know, it becomes generational when you're not doing things are not falling into place. People say, now some people came to this country, they really did well, because they had a good start. We never had a start, you know. It was always trauma, always something going on, you know, here. And and you know, and no psychology. I don't know if I want to mention it, because I even, you know, I was so depressed my two little babies I had to take care of. I wasn't even alive with my head, myself. And I tried suicide. I did. I felt like I was in a black hole and I didn't know how to get out of it. I never went anywhere. Here I was just so young. I was 20 when I gave birth to my second child, not even 20, 19, 17, when I gave birth to my first child. And it just followed us. It followed me everywhere. We just never, I must say, when I'm after all that here in California, we had a few good years, I didn't dwell on it. We didn't, we just tried to live. And he worked so hard, and I got a license in a real estate license, which I didn't follow up on because it's not my thing. I can't be crooked. So, it's very hard for me to be real estate, talk somebody into something that they shouldn't have. I became a clothes designer, which I got a diploma for. So I do a lot of alterations when I can. Here, this town, I mean, if you can survive here and make a living, it's very difficult. So George and I had a few years that I must say were good, but we didn't do big things, but we had company in Los Angeles. We had friends and we got together, the normal thing, playing cards at night, in each other's homes. We had a social life, for a few years, maybe. I think out of my life, I would say out of my 64 years married to him, I would say we had about 10 good years out of it, and things were always difficult, but we never needed help until my mother passed away in 98 and 1998, yes. And we just had problems, and we opened a store here in Palm Springs 4 years, and it went under because Gemco came in, all these big stores came in, and we just couldn't make it. We bought this house because our first house we bought a house in Los Angeles. We like I said, we had this 10 years of our life when my children were starting school and all that. And after I got through this, once you go through such a depression, I hope nobody knows that. I understand it so perfectly because it's like being in a black hole, but once you survive that, then everything gets so much clearer. I didn't have a chance to get psychiatry because psychiatry wasn't available to us, but somehow I got out of it, and then everything was, I decided, what am I going to do, live or die? And I decided to live. And when I decided to live, I wanted to live my best life. And not only my best life, I wanted to be a contributor. I wanted to help others. I wanted to be kind and do something for the world. So when we came here, we started immediately actually speaking in schools because, George told his story about concentration camp. I told my story that, as I told you, and I know how many lives we have saved as far as the students are concerned, because I get the letters from the parents and the students of what it meant to them, how different they think about how they will fight anti-Semitism and racism, because racism, as my husband used to say, is a cancer of humanity. It's just a cancer that eats at you. It's so unnecessary. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been just trying to be a good, kind human being and help others with what I can do. You cannot take up space in this world without doing something for others. And so, and I just want to say, when Blue Card came into my life, I don't remember, he said it's 2002, I don't remember exactly the date, but I can honestly say to you that without them, I would be in the street in a boxcar, because they really helped. They really helped out. The thing, I had to take care of my husband. Uh, uh, I never had time for me. I still don't have time for me. Now I do, but now I don't have the funds either. But I took care of my husband. My husband was really very sick, and I never thought that he would get that sick. He had Parkinson, and then dementia came in, and it was a horror, because at the beginning when he got sick, I really didn't have any help whatsoever, and to drag a heavy man, into the shower and into the bed and into the shower. He was bedridden he was sick maybe for about 12 years, I would say, and bedridden for about 6 years. And it was a tough. I got some from the state here, and of course, Blue Card. I mean, no way. I can't. There's not enough words to describe how wonderful they are. Always kind, always nice, always there, and I am so grateful. So grateful. I wish I was a millionaire. I'd give it all to them. Thank you for listening to me. I hope I got everything in, because I am sometimes forgetful, but I think I did remember. I did remember it to tell you everything. Thank you all. Do I need to say anything more?
No. Uh, Goldie, this is Michael. I
Yes.
honestly, I'm at a loss for words. Your story is powerful, it's touching, it's inspiring, and all I can say is thank you for sharing it with all of us so generously, so openly. I think it's a story none of us will ever forget. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to hear you tell your story and to be inspired by it. I've been asked the one or two things I want to say again to everybody who came tonight, where we'll have questions and answers in just a minute. If you feel so moved, there are opportunities to help the Blue Card do the good work that they do. The staff of Blue Card will put some information into the chat if you want to check out their website, or they have a donation page. And you also have the opportunity to have an event like tonight's event. If you want to possibly host something for your friends and your family, and have your friends invite their friends the way we did tonight, and perhaps have others have this opportunity, speak to the members of the Blue Card staff, or email with them. They were a pleasure to work with. They made it easy for me. And the opportunities, the time is not endless. So I encourage you to, if you're thinking about it, do it as soon as possible. I think your friends will thank you for it. So now I'd like to introduce Milana and Masha, who will say a few words before the questions and answers. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Goldie, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. I've been with the organization for nearly a decade now, and hearing your story, it touches me to the core. And I just want to say thank you for having the strength and the courage to be able to share it with all of us tonight. And I'm just going to jump in to the Q&A part. We have a few questions for you. And the first question I have here from Barbara, are there any days, Goldie, when you don't think about some aspect of your Holocaust experience?
Almost every night, especially now without George. Yes.
I'm sure it must be so difficult. How would you say this trauma impacts your daily life?
Oh, it impacts my life, because it doesn't impact me as much as it did before. When you have trying to raise little children, and you don't know what to do, and you don't have any money, and you don't, it's very, very, very difficult. So and me, I feel like I have so much to give and so much to do, and yet I can't do it. You know, I don't have the means or the place to do it. Uh, so it impacts your life because you feel, I feel not accomplished enough. People think I'm so talented because I do sculpture and this and that. Yeah, I have it, but I just didn't develop it, you know, to make a living at it. Uh, Here and there, I know I'm the best alterations person that you can possibly find. So if you send over your alterations to me, I will do them for you. Uh, you know, that's, yeah, and so it impacts, but I try not to live it, you know. I can tell you, I wrote a poem about, because I did some interviews in New York. I don't know if anybody is interested, and they wanted me to compare the pandemic to my being locked up like that, you know, in a stable and all that. And there's no comparisons. I also wrote a poem about George's Holocaust, and anybody wants to hear it, if I have time, I would gladly share it with you, because I also do poetry only once in a blue moon when it really hits me, because it's all the truth, you know. That's how I feel. It's not abstract. It's how my heart feels. So I'll do the pandemic one that I told everybody about.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm the 1,000-year-old woman. I have seen too much, a pandemic not. Am a Holocaust child, must give it all that I got. Was in hiding for years, hunger, lice, and fear. No one would help us, lost childhood so dear. So now I am asked, how is confinement to me? Not remotely the same. I have freedom, you see. I wake up every morning, the sun shining bright, the flowers bloom, and peaceful the night. I wake happy each day, make breakfast for me. No hunger, no fear. I am free. I am free. That's one of them. And I'll read you the Holocaust one because I wrote this in honor of my husband. History's darkness we must never forget. The killing, the slaughter, the torture till dead. The Jews were all herded into boxcars like sheep. The victims were gassed and piled in a heap. Millions were lost while packed in the trains. From hunger and thirst, broken hearts, so much pain. Mothers and children crying for food, begging and pleading to give, no one would. They put us in camps to beat and to starve, and march us to death. Our souls they would carve. To end our existence, the Germans all tried. They almost succeeded, not all of us died. The Nazis so evil, the world looking on. No nation would help us. We stood all alone. Why, we did ask of scholars so wise, what have we done for hate so to rise? We are survivors, women, children, and men. We must shout to the world, never, never, never again. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Goldie, so much. And I have another question for you
Yes.
from Jessica. She says, your story is amazing. Thank you. Since you survived so much, was there ever a time that you couldn't stop telling your story to whomever would listen?
I didn't actually, I was too scared to talk about it. What brought me to speak about it is in America, I did not experience anti-Semitism until I came to California here. Here in Palm Springs, we went to a holistic doctor because we are into health as soon as I came here to this city. And he asked for a blood test, and I am needle shy, you know, so I said, oh, blood test. He says, what's the matter? And I said, and I just said that word, and I don't know why. I said, well, you know, I'm a Holocaust survivor, and I have, you know, residual pain in my arm because of that. And he went purple. he started screaming in front of the nurse. I'm talking 40 years ago when I moved here. To the nurse, get those shit Holocaust survivors out of my office. You know, get him out, get him out. I took him to call, ADL didn't help me any, nobody helped me, you know, because George and I left in tears. We were crying and sitting in the car. We couldn't believe that this was happening. And so that's when I started speaking. You know, I started saying, okay, I have to write my books. I have to write George's book because he said he'll dictate it, but he doesn't know how to write it, you know. So I did it, and then I started speaking, but because I was really scared to, you know, to so many people to tell my life story, but it helps so many because I think you appreciate your life a little better when you hear that kind of a story, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And
so that's
Goldie,
when I started.
I see. Thank you. Thank you, Goldie. And a number of people are actually very interested to know a little bit about your family. You know, what about your brother? What happened to him after the war? And maybe you could tell us a little bit about your daughters if you're
Yeah,
okay
I
with
always
it.
felt that, you know, he had a terrible time. He was 15, you know, when he came to the United, about 15 when he came to the United States. He had a much harder time even than me. They also put him in yeshiva and in the yeshiva, but he didn't, you know, he was in trouble. He was in trouble. He was playing whatever against the wall, but he cut school a lot, and he just didn't want to, you know, he didn't want to do the things. He was in pain. He was such a good human being, but he was in pain. And then he was for 3 years he had an alcohol problem, but my poor mother, yeah, but he conquered that, and then he became a speaker about it, you know. So he had a difficult time. He just passed away. My husband is almost 6 years ago. You know, but a kindest, more talented person you could. I mean, he was so talented and so wonderful. He was my best friend. Lost him too. I have no one left really, you know, except my two daughters and one granddaughter.
I see. And what was the name of the town where you were born originally?
Katowice. Katowice. It was. It became Austria, and you know, at the end, Austria annexed it you know, and so it was on the border of Austria. Oberschlesien, they called it.
Thank you. And we do have time for one more question. And a lot of people are actually interested to know if the family who hid your family was ever recognized by the righteous Gentiles.
Yes.
By
Oh,
Yad
yes.
Vashem?
In Jerusalem, yes, sure are. And, you know, for many, till my brother passed away, 6 years ago, we were sending them, my brother did mostly, and my parents did, and, you know, sending them packages, you know, always sending them something. And when the Russians were there, they used to put something, some $10 bill or something in the clothing, you know, because they confiscated usually everything. So yeah. Now there's only great grandchildren that I don't even know if they know about us anymore, you know. Oh yeah.
It's important that they were recognized. Thank you, Goldie. And unfortunately, we didn't have any more time for questions, but if it's okay with you, I'm going to share your email address in the chat as well as your Facebook page. Is that okay?
Oh, well, yes, I would sure love that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Goldie. I can't thank you enough again from the bottom of my heart. And everybody
you're talking about my website, right?
Yes.
My website, yes.
Yes. Absolutely. I will do that. And then I just want to thank you again so much for being here tonight, sharing your incredible story. It really touches my heart. And with that said, I'm going to pass it on to Ellie Rubenstein, the Blue Cards president.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk
thank you, Milana. Goldie, thank you so much for the opportunity to listen to your story, to talk to you. And Goldie and I very often communicate through Facebook, through Messenger. And again, it's a privilege to know you and a privilege to do whatever we can to help you and to help people like you. People think that, again, if you ask Holocaust survivor, people would think about probably George Soros and people of means, people who became known, but they are more like an exception to the rule. A lot of Holocaust survivors went through such a tough time, and this tough time related not only to Holocaust survivors, but also to their children sometimes. It's like a very typical stories we hear every day when survivors very often had the families prior to Holocaust, and let's say the husband survived and wife didn't, and then after the war, and the whole family was killed, and after the war they were able to kind of meet each other and build a new family, and then they always felt that the children who were growing up, they wanted them to be like the children from a previous marriage, children who disappeared in Holocaust. And it's very often put such a pressure on the children on second generation. So again, we at the Blue Card see the stories all the time. So Holocaust affected not only survivors of the first generation, but sometimes the second generation as well. And at the Blue Card, we have a number of programs. Again, I would encourage people to look at our website, to see the programs we do, because our goal is to do whatever we can to prevent the emergencies, to prevent the Holocaust survivors who went through so many things in their lives to get upset and to be kind of thinking about how can I get money, how can I afford it. I remember this very vividly. A few years ago, I was in a pharmacy getting some medication, and in front of me was an elderly man who was a Holocaust survivor, because he had a numbers on his arm, and he was asking the pharmacist because he would have a problem paying for medication, would it be okay if instead of taking this pill every day, if he would take it like every other day? And if you think about it, we live in such a wealthy country, and to have the people who went through so much in their lives to do the same and to think about how can I, save a few dollars here and few dollars there is really terrible, And again, the Blue Card, as we discussed before, is the only national organization that helps people not just in New York, but all over the United States. We work in almost 40 states, and we provide help to Holocaust survivors, financial help, as much as we can and as much as they need. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our executive director, Masha Pearl, who would talk more about how you can get involved, how you can be interested, if you're interested, and I hope you are, in helping us to provide this important help, assistance to the Holocaust survivors. Masha?
Thank you so much, Ellie. And I want to thank Michael so much for initiating this event and putting this event together. I'm still very emotional by Goldie's speech, and it's always, every time I hear your story, it just moves me. And the Blue Card, of course, has known Goldie for more than 20 years, which is incredible to think. She just really inspires us so much, and it's an honor to be able to work together and again to be here with all of you today. So we want to really I think impart on you the work that the Blue Card does as a national organization that helps survivors throughout the country. Our programs are aimed at emergency assistance and preventing emergencies and then adding additional assistance for emotional health and well-being. And specifically during COVID, the Blue Card stepped in providing PPE and cleaning supplies, additional food, funds for medication and medication deliveries, and really ensuring that survivors who are in their homes are able to do so independently and safely. And there are a variety of programs that the Blue Card offers that contribute to this, also including the telephone emergency response system for those survivors who are alone in their homes, and monthly assistance to really balance out the difference between income and expenses. And what's different and unique about the Blue Card is that we are a small organization, and our survivors that we're working with, their family. So we know we're friends with them on Facebook, not all, but some, and we're really communicating on a regular basis and able to understand what the needs are and what the emerging needs might be and step in quickly. And that is really a difference and a unique feature of the Blue Card. And that's something that our staff who've been with the Blue Card for so long really pride ourselves on. And I think that for you all to be involved, we truly welcome it. There are a number of ways to be involved. Hosting an event such as this, sharing information about the Blue Card with your employer, including matching gifts and matching donations. There's also Amazon. It's very simple. You can add the Blue Card and designate it as your Amazon charity of choice, and the Blue Card will receive proceeds every time you shop. eBay as well. There are opportunities for virtual volunteering, and it actually works in a way to uplift both the survivors and the volunteers recording the videos in a family-friendly way. There are opportunities to become involved in virtual sporting events, and soon there will be live sporting events in official marathons that the Blue Card is registered with. There are opportunities for a tribute gift and for young leaders to get involved as well. So we will leave our website for you, and please feel free to peruse that at your leisure. And we are available for any questions you might have. I also want to add that the Blue Card is playing a large role in vaccine access for Holocaust survivors throughout the country, and transportation to and from vaccines and food deliveries pre and post vaccine. So we are doing everything in our power to make sure that survivors are safe and independent in their home, as I mentioned before. I want to thank all of you so much for attending today, and I encourage you to stay in touch with Goldie and stay in touch with us, and we will look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you. It's
Thank
great.
you. Thank you, Masha, Ellie. Thank you, Michael, very much. Thank you, Goldie, especially for helping
Thank you
us
so much.
make.
And actually, I do want to if we have just maybe another moment, I wanted to maybe end this on more of an uplifting note. I know that we spoke earlier, and Goldie mentioned to us what sort of keeps her feeling vibrant and what keeps her enthusiastic about the future. And she shared some of those things with us. So maybe you can share some of that with the audience today, in terms of some of the goals you have and some of the the things you look toward for inspiration.
I look into talking to you.
Yes.
Oh, what goals I have? I have so many things that I still want to do. That's why I have to live at least 10 more years, don't I? I'm 80. In May I'll be, Israel becoming a state, May 14th. That's my birthday. I'll be 84 years old, and I just, my head isn't 84. It's just my body and my face probably, but not my brain is not. I'm like 50, 60 years old, and in my brain I have all these things to do yet. I mean, I didn't accomplish a lot of things. Never mind skiing. I know I'll never go there, even though I think about it a lot. No, but I would surely like to go to Israel. And oh gosh, yes, one more time, because Israel was my soul, you understand? I came to America not willingly. We were so ready to go to Israel. All the children were finally wearing blue and white little shorts and blue and white, you know, and just making little gardens over there. Yeah, there's so much more to tell you. I just didn't get it all in, you know. And so I would love it. I don't know if anyone has that same feeling. I don't know if born Americans have the same feeling about Israel that I do, or that us who were in the DP camps who wanted to go to Israel and couldn't and came here. And if I had had such a wonderful life here, maybe I wouldn't feel that way. But you know, it's tough. But I'm ready. I can't give in because I remember I chose to live. So I have to, a lot of things I still have to do. You know, I have to. I know you don't do anything for the children of Holocaust survivors, you know, because my gosh, you know, I wish that I have one genius daughter. She did a TED talk, so you can hear her speak. I will send it to you, you know. And she lives with 3 other women in a house. She shares a house because they can't afford to live, you know, by themselves. And all that. And she's a massage therapist, so she's doing that. And my other daughter is a hairdresser. None of them got that high education that they should have because they're brilliant, but that's the way it is. So now all I have to do is stay healthy. I had my Johnson & Johnson shot because I wouldn't go for 2, you know, so I waited long till I got finally that one. And
happy to hear that. Good.
Yeah, I'm happy to have it, and I'm done with that, and I'm waiting to. Life goes on, right?
Right.
And that's the name of my poetry book. Life goes on. You know? And I don't know if anybody's still around. They can see the books like here. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And this is what I looked like when I came to Palm Springs. Not an old lady. Look.
Wow, so beautiful. You're so beautiful now.
No,
beautiful
no,
then and beautiful then and beautiful now, and so vibrant.
no. I just want to live. I just want peace on earth. How is that? I really, that's what I'm thriving for. That's what I want.
Absolutely
That's my religion. People ask me my religion, and I say kindness. That's it.
Thank you so much. No, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, thank you so much. So we will end on this note. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you all. And the webinar, it was recorded and it will appear on our website. I know many people wanted to know if it's going to be on our website. So yes, you'll definitely see it there in a couple of days.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you, all of you.
You.
Love you all. Love
Bye,
you.
Goldie.
Bye.
Bye.